are here are known. I have known them forever. Forever is a circle. A beautiful ring without a beginning or an end that represents the creative energy of the universe. And the pieces of those creative parts are partially here. And this is what I wish to speak of in these few moments together. Sometimes there are channels which have a great deal to impart. I've got some specifics to give you, but they are known by my partner, even some of them, in his series of lectures. But some of you need to hear it from me. Oh, dear one, there is purpose in your life. And some of the struggles that are here, the ones that are listening and reading in this room before me corporally, it's about shift. And the frustrations that you may have this day, the misunderstandings that you may leave with this day because you didn't necessarily grab on to the perception of a multidimensional part and being, all of these things won't matter. Because what is coming is an increased awareness of a part and a piece of the human being that we rarely speak of. We've talked about the grids changing. We've talked about the recalibration of knowledge and self. We don't often talk about what is really truly going to change that is a core issue in the human. You make assumptions as we move forward that your reality does not move forward, that you've got to accomplish all of the things that we discuss in an energy that you have been in. And we tell you this is not the case. You are turning a corner. This corner is a slow turn, but it's a corner. Dear one, you're already starting to see young people born that are different than you. And if you could measure their DNA chemically, you would see the same set of chemicals you've always seen. So something else is changing, and I will tell you, it's in the DNA, but it's not seeable, for it is quantum, it is multidimensional. The very imprints of the DNA efficiency level are increasing, and that creates a human being who thinks differently. A precursor to human beings who will be born with an instinct that will not create war. That's just the partial of it. I want to tell you what is really, truly, potentially going on. With free choice, you have agreed to turn this corner, and we are seeing you do it. It's been too long without a war, a really big one, you might say. Oh, there may be small ones to come. You can count on it. But the one that everybody expects is not going to happen. The doom and gloom that you've been told about economies falling over, about all of these things that potentially are in your face. Don't be shocked and surprised when some of the wild cards appear and things get better. It's interesting, isn't it, what happens when things get better? Nobody talks about it. But if they get worse, everybody talks about it. Now that is a human nature attribute that will also change. Now this is not new news. This one is a summary, and then I'll get on to the new. And the summary states that the human nature is going to be more attracted to light than dark. Get ready for it. A whole shift in what you want to watch in your entertainment. What you'll respond to. What those who will sell you things you call commercials will create for your interest. How politics might start to move. Come a day when you come back and you watch the commercials today that you have for politics, and you will cringe. Because they're drama-driven, fear-driven, even hate-driven. Can human nature change that much? We told you you are in the process of this. Now, what we're going to tell you is that in the process of a recalibrating human being is attitudinal change. But more than that, you're going to have to change communication with Spirit. And so we start to tell you what is going on that is under the hood between you and I. Old souls are going to see it first. Old souls are going to start to experience things. The communication with the Akash is going to be fearful for some. For you're going to start dreaming very real dreams of who you've been. The Akash comes to the surface as the multidimensionality of a human being becomes more active. What we are telling you is that your past lives' experience start to meld with your current life in ways that you have to understand so that they don't frighten you. That's one. And so the admonition is, do not be concerned or frightened if you start to hear and see and feel who you've been in a very real way. This is communication. You with your higher self. For the higher self is the one who has been there for every past life. The Akashic record in your DNA heats up, you might say, and the soup starts to boil. And the vapor that it creates, this is metaphoric, spills over into 3D, and you feel things, and you wonder about the appropriateness of things. Expect it. Old soul, this is for you. I'm talking to you. Number 2, you're going to start having a more succinct relationship with the subconscious. That is to say, the intelligent part of your body, which we have called innate, is going to start contacting you in a better way. Don't be shocked if you don't have to do kinesiology ever again, old soul. If your intuition starts talking to you about what your body needs, and it never did before. This is all part of what you are creating in a DNA that works better than it did the last generation. The children of today are having an attribute that you did not. They're thinking more conceptually, and that is going to create systems you never thought of. These will be systems you're going to need that you never had before, because they're going to be able to put together unequally yoked entities. I will leave it at that. But just to say, you're going to need this, dear ones, for peace on the planet. Putting together unequally yoked entities. Call it countries or consciousness or culture or religion. You can make it up if you want to. I'm just telling you, there are systems that are going to work, and you've never thought of them. That is a conceptual mind at work, not a linear mind. That's just one item. You're already seeing that in the kids. Grandparents, isn't it interesting how your grandchildren are trying to put together things for your children? And you know what I'm talking about. They're trying to solve the family problems, and they see things that their parents don't. They see it clearly, and their parents don't, because they're conceptual. They can see through falsehood because they're conceptual. They're not led down a linear path where they make a left or a right choice. They see it all at once. Your innate is going to start talking to you clearly. If you're listening to something which we have always called your intuitive mind. Now, intuition has an attribute that most human beings don't like, and that is to say, it seems to be fleeting. It comes in a flash and it goes away. It does not linger. It does not explain itself. And the human being is used to something that comes and sticks around, proves itself, honors itself, explains itself. And then you go, okay, I'll listen. But intuition does not do that. You get an intuitive flash, a thought for a moment, and you tend to discount it. Now, your innate is going to start giving you information about your own body in flashes that only you will understand, for it is specifically unique to every single human's path. I cannot give you a generic answer to anything, but your intuition will. And this is going to start happening automatically without you asking, and that may be irritable. Imagine being awakened in the middle of the night by your intuition. And then asking, what was that, as you try to go back to sleep? Expect more of it. You're going to have to start honoring that flash and learning to decipher what it says. In a quantum state, you do not have the linearity of something that comes and presents itself in a way that you like for so many seconds so you can analyze it. Instead, it's going to be presented in such a short amount of time you'll wonder if it was even there. Intuition. It's a thought group that presents itself to you that is an instruction set for you that gives you what's ahead if you listen. For what is ahead is based upon potentials that are known. Not future telling, not a psychic ability, but an analysis that is quantum. That's what you're going to start getting. You'll know what is around the corner before you get there, because your intuition already knows it. Because in a quantum world, that knowledge is set and known as the strongest potential that will occur. In a three-dimensional world, it is a total and complete mystery. So communication is going to start increasing between that which is the quantum self and the linear self. You're not going to like it. Not all of you are going to like it. Because it's going to present itself in times when you didn't ask for it. And it's not going to be there when you do. Now, why would such a thing be? You're going to have to get used to this, dear ones, that the quantum parts of you do not have a clock. They do not respond to timing as you want it to be responded to. So how do you work with this new attribute that's going to start occurring? And what will it feel like? The instructions are these. Understand it's coming. That there will be something that would appear to be unbalancing that your brain is going to do for you in a new way that you're not used to. A new kind of communication with your subconscious. Here's what you need. Here's what you should do. Don't trust that person. Don't go over here. Turn left. Turn right. It's always what you wanted. Believe me. It's always what you asked for. But you're going to have to learn to read it. The children of tomorrow are going to come in knowing how to read it. And that brings up a subject which is probably the most difficult to ever have tried to explain to humanity. And that is how the communication of self works. There's something you have called synchronicity. It is the trust that when you put out intent, Spirit hears you, and that somehow magically there will be those you will meet in the future who will have answers to questions that you have today. That things will be magically moved around and put together in ways that you have asked for, or not asked for, but which were better than you asked for. And you'll have no idea how it's going to happen. And you trust it. And you should. For this is the new communication. This is the way of it. It won't make sense in linearity. It never does. How can you know what you don't know until you know it? But you can trust you'll know it. Do you see? You can have the energy of co-creation on things that you do not know are coming, but you can trust in the fact that they will come, even without knowing what they are. Now, I want to give you some information that my partner has taught in the past, and I want to make it very clear. And many of you will not like this, because it is not what you were told in basic metaphysics. It starts to explain that which is around you, you call guides and angels. And I'm going to give you some information. You can call them whatever you want, but they're not what you think. I'm now going to explain the engine of synchronicity. I'm going to do it quickly so that you can review it slowly. And here is the truth. When you stand on the other side of the veil with me in the wind of birth, you are a piece of God. You have a light that cannot be understood, a multidimensionality that's planning, that shines like the sun. The brightest light you've ever seen in 3D is what you look like. Beautiful, with your name ringing in light with colors you can't imagine, vibrations that don't exist on the planet. That's who you are. And then you come into the planet, and you're not. Now I'm going to use some 3D logic with you to try to explain something that is unexplainable. What happened when you got here? Where's the rest of you? It's true you have the Merkaba, named by Elisha when he saw Elijah's ascension. Elijah turned into the piece of God he was and blinded Elisha with the light. That's who you are. The bottom line is you're not all here. What happens when you come into this planet, dear one, is that you split. Only part of you comes down. There is what we would call the tether. A multidimensional cord, perhaps, that is silver, if you want to imagine it, that is the portal that connects your higher self in your body to the rest of you on the other side of the veil. Not in the sky, dear ones. The other side of the veil. So you are in communication at some level with that which you left on my side. I want my partner to explain this better. When you come into the planet, dear ones, only a part of you comes, and the rest stays with me. Not with me, but part of me, because I am also part of the soup of the creative energy you call God. We're not isolated into boxes as you see in 3 dimensions. We're part of the creative soup of all that is. You call me Kryon. You want to put a face, skin and wings perhaps, give me even a color. Oh, how 3D of you. I speak for the group, the family that you belong to. And I would like to tell you that I sit in a place on the other side of the veil with you, because a lot of you is here. You had to leave it behind. Here with me. The corporeal you is only a part. Now you would understand this. If you were to take on the full complement of your creation, you would vanish. You know that. So what I'm telling you is you're in two places at once. But now it gets bizarre. Part of you comes in with you into this planet and splits out to become multidimensional and follow you around. These are called guides, and they are you. And you are loving them. You're in love with your guides. Now you know why. They're you. You give them names, perhaps. You even change them. Do you know what the guide change is all about that I told you about 22 years ago? Do you know what the guide change is really about? That's a refreshing of you. It's so different when you go through this refreshing process. It's almost like, in your terms, you rebooted your computer and you got new parts. So refreshing is it that your guides look different. They're not. They're still you. But they're vibrating at a higher level. And so are you. I'm giving you the mechanics of what I'm about to call the synchronistic engine, and I'm not even there yet. So here you sit, human being, the corporeal you. Part of you is on the other side of the veil. Part of you is in your body, the part that you see in the mirror. You've got the higher self, which is the multidimensional soul part, and you've got the guides, which are the other part of you that split out when you came. That's quite a family of you. And that is the multidimensionality of the soul. It's in many places at the same time, just like God. Now, what are we going to do with this next? I will tell you. Now you start to become multidimensional, and you put together something we will call intent with an energy. That's an energy of confluence. Intent is an energy of confluence. That means it goes someplace, melds with something, and has action. It's just not a thought that you throw into the clouds, if you didn't know that. It goes somewhere and does something. And here comes your intent. And the intent goes like this: Dear Spirit, I wish to have the solution to the problem in front of me and the ones to follow that I don't even know about in ways I cannot conceive. And I trust Spirit for this. Blessed is the human who has the courage to do that. Instead of saying, Dear Spirit, here's what I need. I need you to do this and that. That boss that I have, get rid of him. I need to have more money. I need to pay this. I need to do this. Oh, how 3D. Spirit may have something a whole lot better than that. Dear Spirit, I trust in synchronicity. I am going to have things come at me because I'm going to get out there and check. Go to meetings, go to places. Listen to my intuition, which is new and is going to help me and work with me. Pay attention to my dreams so that I will be in the right place at the right time to have those meet me who I don't know yet. Now that is a light worker. And I am just going to tell you how this works. So get ready. The intent goes out, the confluence of energy is seen, the meld is created. And the pieces and the parts of you that are on my side of the veil meet with the pieces and the parts of other human beings, all of whom are there with us. You do understand, do you not, light worker, that every single human being on the planet has part of them on my side of the veil, just like you do. It doesn't matter if they're enlightened or not, if they're old souls or not, they still have part of it with us. And if you get my gist, they're on my side of the veil where all is known. Therefore, they're in the program with you, even if they're not when they're on the earth. Did you understand that? The one who is the sand in your oyster, the one that's giving you the most problems, the one who creates the energy which you feel is dark, has a piece and part of them on my side of the veil that isn't dark, and responds to the confluence of your intent, putting them in the right place at the right time to help them and you because you gave intent. I'm giving you the engine of synchronicity which actually will be peaceful on the planet and is going to bring you energies you don't expect, and this may be cryptic, but I am telling you that the pieces and the parts on my side of the veil is what creates synchronicity because of what you do here. The guides around you push and pull you and get you to the right place if you listen to them. That's how it works. You got a whole team of you working for you. It's not magic. It's not God pushing buttons. It's you working with the others around you. It's family working with family. So what I have just told you is that all humanity works for you. The old soul has the information, the energy to change the crystalline grid, understands about intent, and is the engine for the planet. 0.5% of the planet is going to change all the planet, because what you do here with your intent, all of the souls on the planet, 7 billion of them on my side of the veil, are working for you. How about that? I've just given you the answer of why things are not going to turn out the way you're told they're going to turn out. Because the 3D engine of doubt and fear and trauma is not going to survive. Not when the old souls give intent. That's new. This is the information we're starting to expand on. Many won't understand what I just said. You're going to have to listen to it again. You're going to have to visualize it. And when you do listen to it again, and when it's taught again, shut your eyes and let us give you the picture of what it's like for you to have the tools at your command to create synchronicity that will then create peace on earth. It's not working in 3D. It's not what you think. None of the rules apply that you thought should apply. You're now becoming far more multidimensional, where there is no time, there is no distance. And things are going to work in a way that will shock you. Shock you in their purity, in their goodness. And you will look back someday on these days and realize that this is the renaissance of humanity. Meanwhile, it's not going to happen immediately. Meanwhile, you're here to work. Meanwhile, slow, uncomfortable change. And that is why they call it work. But I just gave you where it's going. I want you to hear this, because you're going to be part of it, now and later. I bring you these things because these are the highest potentials of the planet at the moment. Struggle, drama, old energy that doesn't want to die, leaders who will hold their ground even in death, coming soon, shocks of where certain countries will go with their new leadership that no one thought they would go to. The wild cards are starting to occur, and it won't be anything that you ever saw in old prophecy. Congratulations, dear one. You stand on the precipice of something that you could only have dreamed about. And if you don't see it right away, you will. We have no clock. I can't tell you when. Free choice may beat it up for a while, but the potential is so strong. You're going to want to create it. And if you don't, your children will. And if they don't, their children will. And this is why we celebrate you and wash your feet. And now you know. And so it is.
Hi everybody, thanks for watching this. I wanted to tell you this is a little time sensitive. Hi everybody, thanks for watching this. I wanted to tell you this is a little time sensitive. Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. It's a sweet place, this. The message is a continuation of the messages we have given so far in this which is called the Monument Valley Tour. It's message number 6. It's given on February 14 in your year of 2019, which according to your culture and your custom is Love Day. The message today would be no different than any other about love, except that it's more appropriate than ever. So again, dear ones, please allow me, with the blessing of the ancestors in this place, to one more time, for the ears perhaps of those who have not heard it, to reveal some things that we've revealed before, perhaps a little differently, that talks about the majesty of the creative source. Almost every human on the planet, no matter what belief system, knows about the creative source. And as the belief would go, the entire universe was created by one source. Infinitely small you are compared to the universe, and yet infinitely large is the creative source. And if you wanted to put a personality on that source, as often you do as humans, the source is love. Pure love. Nothing but love. As pure as light can be, it is with no darkness at all. Beautiful, benevolent, compassionate love. And we've said it before, as much love as you can imagine for your friends, your pets, your child. It's 1,000 times what that is. And it's focused, dear ones, on the living portions of the creative source, which is you. Dear ones, there's other life in this galaxy, and it's focused on that as well. The creative source is the source of everything. And there's love imbued in that purity in everything. And the reason I start with this yet again, is to let you know that you, dear ones, have created this veil that you look through to that love. And on this side of the veil, this being where we are right now, this human side, you have duality. And in the duality there is positive, there is negative, there's light, there's dark, there's all kinds of things which are created by what you call human nature. And it's actually appropriate, fair, and correct, because this gives you the free choice. Because you can see the things that are yin and yang, positive and negative, and you make the choice. But let me tell you something. On the other side of the veil, that creative source, which is so big you can't imagine it, there is no duality there. And there would be those who would say, of course there's no duality there, and they would nod their head. And yes, but really, truly, do you understand this? There's only duality here. And yet, there are so many who will then take the duality that is here in this small little earth, where you struggle with a low percentage of light. And you struggle with your duality, and you struggle to improve constantly with free choice. But you take that struggle and you place it upon what you believe is on the other side of the veil. And you have made God then dysfunctional at the core. You've taken this love, pure source, and you've said, well, we are humans. All we know is human nature. Therefore, everything has to be like us. And then there is an angry God, and one who does not get pleased all the time, and one who would actually torture children. And this is the belief system about that beautiful creative source. And again, I will tell you, you've taken yourselves and pasted it on that which is sacred. Let's speak about where that leads and what happens. Because the next step is the creation then of sin. And if you would then ask those who believe in the sin, what is it? Define sin. It's that which displeases God. Anything that displeases God then is sin. And then if there is sin, there must be forgiveness. Let me tell you something, dear ones. Pure love, at the absolutely purest of love, is unable to be displeased. God does not have a human brain that has pleasure and not pleasure, or judgment or not judgment. Pure love is pure love. It doesn't even enter. It cannot. It's like taking the purest light you could ever imagine and trying to throw mud at it and thinking it'll stick like it sticks on you. And yet there are billions on the planet that have put mud on God. Forgiveness, dear ones. In a spiritual world, is almost an industry. I want you to think for a moment. If you took children and wanted to make a test of their free will, and you put them in a dark place where they could barely see, and then they run into walls and they run into each other, and every time they run into a wall or run into each other, you dock them and call it sin, and you punish them. You take them out, punish them, put them back. Because they ran into a wall because they couldn't see well. That's exactly what you have said God does to you. Not all of you, but billions of you. And this, dear ones, will be part of the shift. A spiritual awakening of logic. God is not human. God would not do that. And yet sin has created forgiveness, an industry. If you don't think it's an industry, even within the spiritual, just look at your history. We sat in a place you would call Italy, and we spoke of a man you would call Francis, in a place you would call Assisi. And the most sacred of leaders at that point in time was the Pope in Italy. And that Pope at that moment was selling forgiveness of sin. Inappropriate to the max, you might say. And Francis saw it because Francis was pure and he was filled with the love of the creative source. He wasn't filled with the pompousness of the Pope. The story of Francis is quite amazing. For today he's Saint Francis, and yet he never was a priest. But he was attractive. Like any other master of this planet who is pure, He was attractive because of his purity and his love. And even the priests of the church were attracted to him because of what he believed and said, how he acted, what he did in his life, what he showed people he could be. That was Francis. We've told you before that he bribed the Pope. For he needed money for his enclave. He needed money for his animals. He needed money for his hospital. And so he told the Pope something, because the Pope met with him. He had to, because he was pulling away priests. He was becoming dangerous in his purity. And he said to the Pope, if you'll give me the money for these things, I will then stop being that attractive, because you will then stop selling forgiveness of sin. And that was the agreement. And in the church in Francis of Assisi, there's even a painting that portrays it, although the people who would then guide you through that church won't then identify that painting of that way. In fact, that painting shows Francis of Assisi and the Pope meeting with a scroll of demands from Francis to the Pope. A list, you might say, an agreement, you might say. So the Pope would stop selling sin forgiveness. The guides will tell you it's a list of Francis' sins. I'm going to tell you it's in a contract that changed who the Pope was, changed the church, and made it more pure. That's the kind of an industry forgiveness has become to some. In some ways, it becomes an industry of fear. If you don't have that kind of forgiveness from a God who's going to judge you from that pure love thing, then there's the fear of what might happen to your soul. And these things, dear ones, are not from God. They cannot be from the pure source of light and love, which is not a consciousness of a human. It has come from humans to humans, humanity, systems. The most inappropriate thing that is here today on this planet is fearing the source of light, when all that source wants to do is love you. Love is the message of the day. Earlier today, dear ones, you had a forgiveness exercise, but it had nothing to do with a spiritual forgiveness. It had to do with human to human. And that is the forgiveness I want to speak of. I want to talk about what it means, and perhaps in a way you haven't heard before. I want you to right now relax in the arms of God, whatever that word means to you, just for a moment, and see that precious pure light as I tell you this story. The story is, again, a logic story. More than that, it defines the attributes of your brain. So you'll understand what you're doing when you start to forgive. Coming right from the light, right now, I want to show you this. When each of you were a child, there came a time when you had that moment where you would burn your hand or your arm or your leg with something hot. It happens to every child, because as much as their parents will warn them against heat, there comes a time when you test it. And at that moment when you burn your hand or your finger, as a child, dear ones, even before you can speak, that episode will etch itself into the neurons of your brain, in the synapse of the place and the bundles where memories are kept. The burning of the hand is there all your life. Now, the reason I tell you this, in a moment you'll find out, it's permanent. It would be nice if you could undo it, if you could delete it, but you can't. Your brain is not like the current day computer. There's no delete key. It stays there. It stays there. Now, in the case of burning your hand, it's survival. It stays there because it needs to stay there. So you won't forget it. But that's the way of the brain. But it also happens with something else. Dear ones, it happens with betrayal. It happens with unkindness. It happens with the trauma of experience. It happens with abusive parents to children. All of that etched upon the brain. And at time, perhaps even when you're an adult, when you have betrayal, when you have these kinds of things, it etches itself in the same place where you burned your hand. And in those places, it stays, and you can't undo it. And so today, you went through an exercise where you might have written some of those things down, and it might have been difficult to even write them. Because these are the things you want to forget. Because to remember them brings up all the feelings again, just like burning your hand. And all of those feelings will come to a head, and there will be tears, and there will be uncomfortableness and sorrow. And so most of you stay away from those things, but all of you have them to some degree, more than others for some. And you wrote them down, which was difficult, and you burned them in a significant ceremony to say, they're gone. This is how I see it. They're gone. But I just told you they're not. But your ceremony is telling your brain that they are. Let me tell you what you did today, and anyone else listening, and the parables I've given in the past about what a Lemurian woman would do as she burns the leaf that she has etched on these things into the volcano fire. Because I've even channeled before that this is an appropriate thing to do, as you did today. So let me give you a vision of how you take something in your brain that is forever until your last breath, just like burning your hand, and instead you transform it. Whatever that was that you wrote on the piece of paper, or for those listening who didn't do the exercise, whatever it is that you could think of that is the betrayal of the thing that eats at you at night when you sleep or doesn't let you sleep. The thing that can't forget because it was so awful to you, so uncomfortable, so sorrowful to you. Whatever it is, even if it's a memory where you're asking forgiveness of yourself because you keep bringing it up, beating yourself like a little whip with it, it's still there. So I want you to have this vision of what really might be happening in your brain, what you do. And it has to do with the power of compassion and love. In the yin and yang scenario, in the black and white scenario, of all the things that a human being can do, one of the most beautiful things is this. You have a piece of the creative source in you that is multidimensional and goes beyond that which any human being could do by themselves, and it's called the higher self. That higher self, think of this, it's your soul that has one foot on the other side of the veil and one foot here, metaphorically, as it would stand there. It is the conduit, the bridge, the one that you're always trying to get to. But let me tell you, here's where you can use it. Because that higher self is also like a direct contact, conduit, wire, whatever, to the purest light and love you can imagine. And so let's see if you can vision this because of what you did today with the fire, and you have that pure, bright light like a searing fire, except it's not a destructive fire. It's an encompassing connection that circles the memory with compassion. There it is in your brain, and I want you to see, coming from the other side of the veil, a shell. You can't delete it biologically, but here comes that beautiful shell of compassion that is so beautiful and so loving, and it encircles that memory, that thing that you want to have go away, that you say, I want to forgive that person or those people or myself, whatever that's the encompassing shell of multidimensional light that encompasses and forgives. And it goes right around that memory in your brain, so that every single time you go back to that, it's covered with forgiveness, compassion, and love, and you can never get to that hurtful place again. So complete would it be that you could even go in there with a set of tools, and you can't get to it. So what you've done is, instead of eliminating it, you've transmuted it, covered it with love. This has to make sense to you. The vision is more accurate than you know. It has to do with complex consciousness, dear ones. And so we've simplified it so that it can be visualized and acted upon and understood. There are those who will tell you that those things that you wrote on the paper are forever. And I'm here to say they're right. But how you treat them and how they work with your consciousness from now on in your life is not forever and can be transmuted. Psychologists have worked on this for decades. And here it is yet again, in a way I'm presenting. And I'm telling you this, it's permanent. In a linear world, there are so many things that you do over and over and over and over because more is better. In a multidimensional world, once you throw the switch, it's forever. That's much different. There'll be those who tell you how many times you have to count the beads in order for certain things to happen, or how many times you have to say a phrase before God will hear you. I'm telling you this. God knows you so well that if you simply look into the eyes of the Creator, it's gone. One time. That's how powerful you are with yourself. So I want you one more time to envision that burning piece of paper today that you had. And see not only the paper smoldering and going away, but suddenly the connection to the other side of the veil coming in and covering those things, whether it was you who had to forgive yourself or you're forgiving somebody else. Doesn't matter. Whatever memory. There's somebody in the audience needs to hear this because there was a death of a child. And that is something profound, Mom. You're never going to forget that. And it's so sorrowful. You start putting that together, where you put that compassion, and then you start having all of these revelations. And the revelation is that the soul of the child is still here smiling and saying, thanks, Mom. I never wanted to etch something in there like that. I want you to listen. Only wanted love, only wanted love, only wanted love. The person you're forgiving on the planet, they may or may not still be alive. It's the best they could do in that yin and yang world. It's the best they had. And it wasn't good enough for you. And it etched something in your brain. Today you cover it with that compassion from the source and the light. So you can't get to it anymore. And suddenly you start to breathe easier and saying, it's like I just dropped a big suitcase of lead. That I'm free. It's almost like I can float now. Because I don't have to take that anymore. I don't have to bring that around, and I don't have to drag it like an anchor. Because you've covered it with compassion. This is as good as it gets, dear ones, for a human being to be balanced. You can't carry these things and call yourself a balanced human being, because you're out of balance. You're always dragging something around. And so this is how it's done. And it shouldn't surprise you on this Valentine's Day that I would yet again tell you about the incredible love that is on the other side of the veil for you. Not anger, not fear. God does not think like a human being. God, the creative source, if you can even say think, has no thoughts except, if you had to say what is a thinking God, it is one who projects, propels, and throws light and love and compassion as best can to you through a dark and dim place that you are slowly creating light within. And that is why we are so excited about the shift. Because there'll come a time when that dimness will go away. And the veil starts to become thinner. Mark my word, there'll be a day when you look back sometime in human history and you will see all the things that I have mentioned about the projection of the human onto God as a children's story. And you'll know the truth. God is love. And so it is.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching this. I wanted to tell you this is a little time sensitive. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching this. I wanted to tell you this is a little time sensitive. Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. What you see here as you listen, as you watch, some of you, is admittedly beyond that which you would expect in the reality that you live in when you're not in this room. The very fact that you have come here collectively to watch this, to feel the energy, says that it is not necessarily something that you see all the time. Or perhaps you expect something different. Perhaps you're hanging on the words to find something special. The channelings that are at the end of these days for this kind of workshop are different. Because we talk about who's in the room. Sometimes the room is those who are listening later for you, now for me. It's more of a personal channel than that which is information which we would list as we have done before. And so we go right to the point. What happens when you leave? When the channel is over, if you're listening to this later, and you get up out of your chair and you go wherever it is that you go, what happens? Right now in this room, there is an entourage, and we've talked about it before. We invite you to discern that there is one. We invite you to discern that this channeling is not my partner talking. We invite you to discern the love of God, Spirit, whatever you wish to say. This is the energy that has taught with the masters of this planet over and over. Through major cultures and minor ones, through the ancients and the indigenous. Through the energy of Gaia and more. This is what is taught in this time. But what happens when you leave? The linearity of your minds and that which you call real life causes a diminishing in energy when you're not in a group. The entourage is here and it's precious, and we invite you to feel the energy of this entourage. Group, there are those here today in front of me collectively that create a certain consciousness, an attribute of what happens when Merkabahs intertwine. You're all sitting in each other's energy, and it creates a larger energy. And then you go home. Some of you will go home with the others you came from. Many will go home alone. There may be family at home, but you really go home alone. And when you get there, what do? How real is this later? No matter what we do right now, no matter what we discuss and what we talk about, I've said this before for years. This is the part where you sit and I sit, and there's a love exchange together, where some of you can actually feel the creative source and know you're okay. Some are healed in these meetings. Because collectively, because there is this attribute of togetherness, it creates an energy that allows healing. Do you really have to come to a meeting to get this? I want to say something. I want to say welcome to the new earth, where any one of you can go home and create the entourage. Any one of you. I want to tell you, I double dare you. My partner's words. To become the master that you are. The masters who walked the planet did not walk in a group. They walked alone. And what they carried was everything alone. And if you wanted to know what was going on in many of their minds as human beings, there was doubt. There was shock and surprise sometimes at what happened around them and the reactions to them. Inside, and you're going to last longer. You're going to have revelations by yourself of who you are. And the biggest issues will be things like self-responsibility, awareness of situations you're in that you shouldn't necessarily be in. Not in order to let yourself grow. Some of you know very well what I'm talking about. And growth also creates some uncomfortable times. But the masters had them as well. What are you going to do when you go home? Let me ask you a question. Is this meeting a crutch for you. Do you have to come to a meeting like this in order to feel the euphoria of the love of God? Or can you walk out of this place standing tall and say, I can create this in a closet? Now here's the next question. You're with others and they're not of like mind. Can you create it then? Can you walk this euphoric way with Spirit inside you, giving you right what you might feel now, and be with others who don't agree and are giving you a bad time? What's going to happen when you leave here? Today, there were questions, there were an attempt at answers, and almost uniformly, all over the planet, the questions to channelers, to teachers, to Spirit itself are all the same. And the questions have to do with what, where, how, when, and why. It's almost like every single one of you needs to understand the mechanics of everything esoteric in order to take the next step. And that's human nature. And I'm going to say this. I'll say it again. Why do you do that? Is it really, really necessary? Dear ones, I give you the example yet again. You have a machine called the human body. It's a chemical machine. It gets you from A to B, birth to death. And it operates by itself without you thinking much about it. It's designed that way. And you work this machine during your life, and as you grow up, you learn about it. Some of you are able to control it by the health that you put into it, by the food and all the other things that you put into it. And that's about it. That's about it. Your consciousness, as you've discovered, can alter it, can make it last longer. But it operates by itself. Do you really have to be a physician and study every piece and part to walk from A to B? And the answer is no. You get into the automobile, and it gets you from A to B. And you never ever think to yourself, I must understand the workings of the internal combustion engine in order to get to A to B. Ever. You never. Because it simply works. Now I'm going to say this yet again. The awakening process of the human being that is spiritual and filled with purpose in this age has automatic mechanics that work within you. As you're aware of shift and change, Spirit is working with you. How many of you are aware of what happens when you awaken at 3 in the morning? And there are many of you who do. And do you wake up and wring your hands and go, what do you want? Or do you have the balance to raise your hand and say, thank you, Spirit, for keeping me awake? Because I recognize I'm being worked on. There's things that need repair and help. There are things that need to be enhancing. I don't have to know what they are. Thank you. You see, it's a system that is designed to work in an old soul by itself. If you open the door, light is coming in, and you don't have to analyze the waveform of it. You don't have to measure the door. You don't have to know why. You really don't. Instead, dear human being, I want you to feel it. It's either appropriate or it's not. That's what free choice is about. Is it fearful? Does it feel good or not? Discernment is not about the minutia of how it works, how long it's going to take, and where it's going. The old soul is beginning to awaken to a bigger purpose and idea. That these things come along when they should. And the more calm you are about all of them, the better they're going to work. But they're going to be stopped if you start to analyze what, why, where, who, and when. It's just going to be stopped. Because those answers, dear ones, are not available in a linear way. You all have fallen in love. All of you. Whether it's with another human being, whether it's with a master, whether it's with an animal. And it's palatable. It's beautiful. It changes your chemistry. You look at each other, human beings, in your eyes, and you're in love. And I've said this before. Do you then stop and analyze it? Do you say, well, what's happening? I can't fall in love unless I know the minutia of it. You don't. Of course you don't. Of course you don't. You enjoy it. You fall into each other's arms and you enjoy it. And there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. God is in love with you. And there's nothing like it. And I want to invite you to fall into the arms of that which is already inside you, called the higher self, which has the creative energy of the love of God. You fall in love. And stop asking why, or when, or how. There are answers, basic answers about the shift of the planet, where you're going, what really truly is happening. It's about an ascended human race. Human by human, case by case, thinking differently on a pathway that is of a higher vibration. The result, longer life, peace on earth. We've said it before. But dear ones, this is a metaphysical, esoteric principle you're getting from A to B. It's way too complex for you to put it in a box, especially the box of 3D. And there are those who will leave here, and when they walk out the door, everything that was here stays here. Because you just didn't get it. That everything that is taught here is you. It's not from the one on the stage. It's available inside you. Tonight, before you go to sleep, I invite you to retire into a room that's yours only. And I want you to think upon these things. You might even raise your arm and say, Dear Spirit, if you're there, show me. And you're going to get chills. You'll feel even your eyes are closed, that perhaps a light is bright and shining on the top of your head. And the higher self is going to wink at you and say, it's about time you ask. And you can carry that light everywhere you go. By yourself. Alone. If you are fortunate enough to have a partner or family members or associate that feels the same as you do, now you're a group. It carries even more power, for where there are two or more, it's exponential. But dear ones, it starts with you. Do you dare ask the question, Dear Spirit, what is it I need to know? And you won't get a voice. You won't get handwriting on the wall. You'll get guidance, intuition, and love. This is the new human being. The one who accepts something that is complex, that affects their lives, their emotion, everything, and they don't understand it. But they don't have to. Because the design is that this, dear one, is going to get you from A to B without you knowing why. Can you do that? Discern it with your emotional heart. If you need to analyze it from a point of correctness of feeling. Don't analyze it from what you've been taught it should be, or what normally happens, or what you think happens. There is not one of you who really knows what happens, not even the one in the chair. Everything we have given you is extremely simple, because that's where you are right now. You're in a simple place with simple concepts, working a simple puzzle that is enormously complex. Just like the engine of your car. It's going to get you there if you let it. Do not fear the love of the creative source in your life. Maybe it's time you heard that. When you leave this place and you go home, what's going to happen? The ones listening to this, when you get up out of the chair and go in the other room and you're done listening to the channel of Kryon, are you going to take this with you, or are you going to shut it off? My partner calls it throwing the switch. You live a life, you go to a building and you worship, you dress for it, you come home, you live your life. A and B. And it's time that stopped. I want you to leave this place differently than you came. The entourage is making a lot of noise right now. You can't really hear it with your ears, but you can feel it with your heart. You are known by God, by name. It's time you left and knew that. Climb into the closet and be known by God, by name, with a light shining on your head. That's the message for today. It'll be the message as long as I'm here. And so it is.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching this. I wanted to tell you this is a little time sensitive.